go with one of your stories, first of all, because I think it's so important to what we do, and that is about the FBI leaking James O'Keefe's emails to the New York Times. Give us the background to that, Josh.
Okay, so I want to clarify that we don't absolutely know it was the FBI, but so Project Veritas has obviously been doing a lot of work that's been a thorn in the side of the US establishment. They were covering CNN, Facebook, YouTube. They did some investigation into stories regarding Joe Biden's daughter's diary that had gone missing. And anyway, so the FBI raided O'Keefe's house and reportedly looking for the diary. And then the next day or so, New York Times releases a collection of secret Project Veritas confidential legal documents after the FBI had seized James O'Keefe's phone. And there really is no other place that the New York Times could have got this. And they sort of gleefully published Project Veritas asking for a legal opinion on how the work that they were doing could be considered, legal, to make sure they weren't breaking any laws. Like, this is pretty standard journalistic practice. And the New York Times just published this like some sort of got you.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely insane because this is horrendously illegal.
Yeah.
First off. And then I'm stunned that Twitter are even like allowing the link to be shared, because I don't know if you remember, there was a New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop that wasn't allowed to be shared on Twitter because the source was obtained illegally, that they said, they wouldn't share a link with that. And this is literally what we're looking at here.
I know, one rule for one and one rule for the other. And of course, as you say, we don't have categoric proof, but the attorney for James O'Keefe obviously accuses the Department of Justice of leaking info to the New York Times, says the Times knew of the raid moments after it occurred, suggests that the Department of Justice is the source of legal communications leaked to the paper. And obviously, days after the raid, a judge ordered the Department of Justice to stop extracting data from 2 phones which were confiscated from James O'Keefe's New York residence. This is pretty outrageous. And obviously, you've just given us 2 examples of them and us, right? And that is Hunter Biden's phone and James O'Keefe. And James O'Keefe obviously represents a type of alternative media that isn't to the advantage of like the New York Times, which is fast becoming part of old media. And obviously Project Veritas, much more groundbreaking, prepared to go in there on the edge of things, literally breaking stories. And so this is a real worry about, well, for people like you and I, Josh, about what we do, because this also infringes on our practices as well. If we can have law enforcement handing over correspondence to newspapers.
Yeah, it's shocking. It's like, don't poke the bear of the establishment, or they will send the intelligence agencies to your house and then leak what they find. Like, that is a stunningly dangerous road to be headed down. I mean, I hope there's some sort of investigation, but one of the things that actually makes it way worse is that Project Veritas are currently like tied up in legal issues with the New York Times. Like, they're currently involved in a court battle, and the New York Times is producing this information, like leaking confidential legal information against someone that they are currently in court with. It's like,
I mean, it is gobsmacking. We've reached just such a new era of madness and it's not to say that there wasn't corruption before, that this wasn't happening before. It's just everything is now transparent. It's like it's happening in plain sight, and people are just like, I think, almost gobsmacked. I think it's so blatant that in itself makes people believe it's not true.
Yeah, and the problem as well, when they start to selectively remove links on social media platforms, it just is that there is no like objective standard. There is no like digital rule of law or like convention to stick to, especially because, I don't know, if you look at like traditional outlets, they've maybe been able to hold on to the ability to say things more than independent journalists, perhaps. just with the way the internet has evolved, because they have like that institutional clout, and the internet has no precedence, and therefore we're kind of like swimming in a without, I don't know. It's like the mainstream press are on the road and they can see like the faded like road markings, whereas
Oh
the
yeah.
internet is just like a big open like space with no lines.
Yeah, which is why they obviously want the online harms bill to come into effect. And then you have like Harry and Meghan, who are working incredibly hard to clamp down on the internet.
Mm.
And a lot of it is, I think, with people like Harry and Meghan, is they hate the level of criticism they're subjected to, you know, and we've seen it before. We've seen it repeatedly before. People saying hello to you here. Ray Cam points out that Project Veritas didn't publish anything from the diary. They handed it over to the Department of Justice, then got raided, which in itself obviously is absolutely outrageous. Thank you, Darren. Love the cut. Thank you. Josh. Hi, Josh. Looking forward to a great show, says Darren. Defer says, surely this diary is just a distraction from something else as usual. Do you think it's a distraction?
Oh, I hadn't even thought of it like
I
that.
know.
I mean, to be honest, we look at everything like that. You know,
Yeah.
everything that Boris does is as a dead cat. You know, but I mean, it could be a distraction from something but to be honest, it seems like to me pretty clear cut that it's just attempting to intimidate James O'Keefe, who
Right.
dared to, yeah, stand against the, the conventional narrative and do things a little differently.
Exactly. And do you think that, I mean, that's a good point you make there. And that is, you know, everything seems to be a dead cat. And do you think we are in danger of assuming, as you say, that everything is? And so what it actually does is it distracts us. So, for example, when I was saying early on about what was happening with COVID and the elderly people in the care homes, people were saying to me, nobody's dying from COVID. I'm like, these are elderly people who have been kicked out of NHS hospitals and they are not protected and they're dying. And so the problem is with everybody thinking that everything is a false flag or everything is a red herring, it sometimes means that we are actually missing real injustices, right?
Mm. And I guess this is one of the things that make people think that the last 2 years have been a huge psyop, really, isn't it? That the mass confusion is difficult to tell what's going on. You know, you can believe nothing really at this
That's
point,
right.
right? I will read something and even I don't believe it until I've seen it confirmed by like 15 different people, and even then I'm like,
Yeah. That's the state we've got to, isn't it? Absolutely state we've got to. Morning all of you. Oh, the live chat is busy as anything. Lovely to see you all. Yes, Ray Cam, Project Veritas were exposing big pharma officials, saying Vax is funding all pharma now. That's why they are a target. And that, I believe, has some truth in it. Absolutely. Yes, Ricky, the elderly were murdered. There's no doubt about it. Right, Josh, let's move on to the next story. We'll obviously keep an eye on that because there's so many twists and turns involved in it. As I say, that does impact on people like you and I, so we have to be incredibly careful.